Hey guys, I'm Tim Kotzman here with Dennis Porter, CEO and co-founder of Satoshi Action Fund, president and founder of Satoshi Educate, 4 bills passed into law, and here we are. I'm here with the big dog. That's the formal intro now, right?
Yeah. No more buddy.
No
Only
more
big dog.
Yeah. So I'm here with the big dog. I thought I'd start off with a little bit of a lightning round. I'm just gonna. We have 3 items. Each item, like whether it's 5, 10, 15 seconds, we just respond to real quick. Are you up for that? Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay.
Shoot.
First item, quantum computing in relation to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's a hot topic.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. I mean,
No
people
problem.
need to go back and listen to Andreas Antonopoulos talk about this. It
Mhm.
really is not a problem at all. The amount of quantum compute, like what he says is, quantum computing exists. It's really just about how powerful the quantum computer is. And even if the most powerful quantum computer in the world, let's say it existed, something that could break Bitcoin, do you really think that these top security folks in the CIA, NSA are going to use this, what is really a weapon against Bitcoin? No, they're going to keep it secret, and they're going to use it when the time comes to actually use it to hurt their geopolitical rivals or to respond to their geopolitical rivals. Using it on Bitcoin to crack Bitcoin would be an absolute waste. Also, people need to keep in context that this weapon, theoretically, I think you should call it that because it could be used as a weapon.
Mhm.
It will be used on anything. It could be used on nuclear subs. It could be used to crack the codes for the nuclear weapons at the White House. Like, they're talking about being able to crack open the entire internet, really, with a quantum computer. If you can break Bitcoin, you can break pretty much anything. So we have much bigger problems on our hands. And also, certainly, we can also upgrade Bitcoin. People forget Bitcoin is programmable money. And if we have a problem with the current SHA-256, which is the consensus mechanism that we use, it is the cryptography we use for our consensus mechanism, we can upgrade it. It's not a problem. People take it out of... People love to just blow these things up because they can get clicks. It's not a problem. It's been solved. And it can be solved again if it ever becomes a problem again in the future.
Topic 2 of 3, Microstrategy.
2 of 3. Microstrategy.
Well,
what's my opinion on it?
Yeah, number 1 was quantum computing. Number 2, Microstrategy.
I didn't know if you were like, is this a two-thirds strategy here on Microstrategy?
Nothing would surprise me at this point, but go ahead.
So Microstrategy, love what they're doing. Love the way that they've been able to encourage more investors into this space. Me personally, I'm highly focused on Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Topic number 3, the Macro Minutes announcement and headline yesterday. Dennis Porter announces alien drones in New Jersey are here to establish intergalactic Bitcoin reserve in collaboration with the Satoshi Action Fund. Your response?
Listen, we're getting all this inbound, even intergalactic inbound.
Right. So Pennsylvania has adopted legislation, or they've introduced. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
As of yesterday, Texas has introduced. And do you want to walk us through that and what you're seeing as far as what you're able to talk about with other states and your outlook on all of this landscape?
Yeah, happy to. So we were proud to be the first in the entire world, the first in U.S. history to introduce strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation at the state level. We were able to craft that model policy and work with Representative Cabell to get it across into the state legislature, to get it across the line and be able to have it be the first ever to be introduced. That got big headlines. People were paying a lot of attention to that. And it was great because it ultimately resulted in a wave of more states showing a ton of interest on Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. We now have up to 10 states. Well, I should say, actually, we have at least 10 states, maybe more now, that will be ready to introduce this legislation. Pennsylvania being the first, Texas being the second, but next week we're going to have more. We could have 2 or 3 more by next week. At the end of the day, people want more Bitcoin. It's growing in popularity, and this is the hot ticket item when it comes to Bitcoin policy.
In the past, you've seen the mayors of New York and Miami be very vocal and pro-Bitcoin. Do you think that seeps out to the state level at all as far as New York and Florida goes, or not necessarily, or too early to tell?
It just depends, I think right now we're in a different paradigm. Previously, you saw a lot of these individuals jump up and support Bitcoin, and we didn't really see a lot of outcomes. We didn't see a lot of positive outcomes from it. We didn't
Hmm.
see Florida turn orange all of a sudden and become super pro Bitcoin. It was really contained to the office of the mayor in Miami. Same thing in New York. We saw it contained to the office of the mayor there. We don't see it taking over New York. In fact, New York has been pretty hostile to Bitcoin in the past, particularly Bitcoin mining, although they just lost their loss. This was a really big win. The Greenwich site there, which was the site where the origin, it was ground zero for the ban on Bitcoin mining in the state of New York. They just lost a big lawsuit against Greenwich. Greenwich won. The Bitcoin miners won. So the tide is certainly turning. So now, though, we're entering this new paradigm, as I mentioned. We are seeing a catalyst take place where when one person starts doing something pro Bitcoin, they get all this attention for it. And then all of a sudden, everybody else is like, wow, I guess it's time to be pro Bitcoin. But not just because they're trying to do it. And I get this question a lot. Oh, they're just doing it for political points and they're just doing it so they can get attention. That might be true to an extent with some lawmakers,
Hmm.
because that's kind of the game that you play when you play in politics and you try to get to the highest level. But there are also lawmakers who just are Bitcoiners. We are seeing for the first time ever Bitcoiners run for office, win their offices, and then try to pass pro Bitcoin policies. I had a recently elected state senator. He gave me a call and he said, I just won my office. I just became a state senator. I've been a Bitcoiner since 2017. And now I want the first bill that I introduce to be a strategic Bitcoin reserve piece of legislation.
Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Stampseed. If you're in cold storage, you know how important it is to protect your seed phrase. That's why I recommend you head over to stampseed.com and check it out for yourself. This seed phrase storage device is one solid piece of titanium. There are no loose pieces, and you can hammer your seed phrase in letter by letter. When you go to stampseed.com, use promo code TIM15 for a 15% discount across the website. That's TIM15. Where do you see the Satoshi Action Fund and yourself, maybe not even several years from now? Let's say that we have all 50 states and, for all practical purposes, every nation on earth adopt a Bitcoin treasury strategy, a Bitcoin strategic reserve, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Yeah, that might only be 2-3 years from now, and 2 or 3 very exciting years. What's the next step after that? I mean, it might sound kind of insane to think that far out, but when Bitcoin Magazine is posting on X and they have a map of the United States and you have Pennsylvania and Texas filled in, it kind of makes you think you're going to see more states filled in and many more states filled in over the next coming weeks and months, at least for me personally.
Well, you're absolutely going to see more states be filled in. We have, like I said, at least 10 states that are going to be introducing this legislation. And this isn't the only legislation we're working on. We have multiple pieces of legislation. It's just that everybody gets very excited about the strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation. It is, as I said, the hot ticket item on policy. But we are going to continue to protect Bitcoin rights, the right to mine, the right to self-custody, the right to run a node. We have that legislation expanding all across the country. We'll see more introductions. So we'll have at least 10 on the strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation, but we'll have even more on the policy of protecting Bitcoin rights. But going to your question about where are we going to go next? It's a great question. And we at Satoshi Action are always trying to pursue the most cutting edge and innovative policies to be able to unlock the true potential of Bitcoin. That is our new motto. First, we said, let's go on offense for Bitcoin because nobody was doing it. Everybody was just sitting on defense on their back foot, waiting to take the next punch. But you can't win a game. If you guard your goal the whole time in soccer or football, as my European friends like to say, if you guard your goal the whole time, you might not get scored on very often, but you'll also never score points yourself because you never went on offense. And so you'll never win a match. You'll never win a game. So we needed to go on offense for Bitcoin, but we did that. We did go on offense for Bitcoin. We were able to get 30 bills introduced across this country. We passed 4 bills into law. No one has done that. No one's come close to doing that. We also were able to generate academic research, even peer-reviewed research. We've gotten 5 pieces of research through the peer review process. No one as far as like from an organization's perspective. Sure, you've got some universities doing this stuff, but no one's been able to do that and get all the policy done. We've won big. We're going to continue to win big, especially with where the momentum is headed for Bitcoin. But we'll always be pursuing the next cutting edge piece of policy. So we think we're going to really lean into how do we unlock Bitcoin now? We've won, we went on offense and we won. What's next for Bitcoin? Certainly strategic Bitcoin reserves is one piece of cutting edge policy that we believe we can get passed into law. In fact, we give it a near 100% chance of passing, and I'll explain why in a moment. But what's next? What about the energy policy? We've talked about this for a long time. Bitcoin mining is an incredible tool for balancing the grid, for enhancing clean energy, for mitigating methane emissions, for creating rural jobs. And we have barely scratched the surface on how we can use this technology. We're fortunate in some states like Georgia and Texas that they have had these grid balancing programs that have shown the true power of Bitcoin mining. But we've never sat down and gone, well, let's create some more energy regulatory policies that, as I say, truly unlock the potential of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. We haven't even got to that point yet. Once we get these strategic reserves passed, we're going to be working more and more on things like cutting edge innovative energy policies. In fact, we've already started this effort. We've already started doing the groundwork to move into that next wave of policy. Bitcoin mining is the best energy tool that exists on this planet. And I'm not the only one saying that. We've had the late former CEO of ERCOT, Brad Jones. He wrote a paper alongside us endorsing a number of these different abilities and features that Bitcoin mining has. I talked to the former economist at FERC when he retired. He has his signature on all the little documents that say, this is a FERC order. This is a FERC order. We want to do more grid balancing. He was one of the brainchilds for all of these policies. So he deeply understands things like demand response. When I told him what Bitcoin mining can do, what its potential is, he said, if what you're saying is true, if the way that you're describing Bitcoin is accurate, and it absolutely is accurate, then Bitcoin mining is the best grid balancing technology on the planet. And we haven't even so if these guys are saying that, that's great, but we haven't even begun to utilize Bitcoin mining the best way we possibly can. So what we're going to do next, and we'll continue to find something to do next, but what we're going to do next is we are really going to unlock the potential of Bitcoin mining as a grid balancing technology as soon as we unlock Bitcoin as a reserve asset.
Do you want to jump into why you're calling it a near 100% chance of these things passing and happening?
Yeah, definitely. We're pumped about strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation. But to put it in context, we never say this. We never say we have a near 100% chance or a near guaranteed chance of passing legislation because it's a very difficult process. No, most people don't know how much work goes into this. It's an incredible amount of work that goes into passing legislation. Especially when you're doing it in multiple states, we're doing it in 15 or 20 states at a time. When you pass legislation, it requires a lot of work. You have to, first of all, educate the lawmaker, convince them it's a good idea, get them to do the introduction, work on the draft together, back and forth. We were doing this with the Texas lawmaker. We were doing it with the Pennsylvania lawmaker. Back and forth, you're working on the draft, making sure they don't make any mistakes, making sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. And then you go to introduce the legislation. Then you got to go fly to the state. You got to have the committee hearing. You got to testify. You got to prep testimony. You got to prep other people to testify. You got to meet with the individual lawmakers before the testimony and convince them that this is a good idea so that when they hear the testimony, they say, okay, that's a great idea. And then you get through the committee hearing and then you go to the House floor or Senate floor, depending on which one you're starting in, and you get it hopefully passed through the House or Senate floor. But then you got to repeat the process, the whole thing, you got to repeat on the other side. And then you got to, of course, hope the governor signs the bill into law. So it's a massive amount of work. But the reason we're saying that this bill, one of the bills in particular, is going to have a near 100% chance of passing is because there's a task force, a lot of task forces all across this country. They meet before the legislative cycle starts. At the state level, state lawmakers, they have a part-time legislative cycle in most states, not all states, most states. And what they do to prepare for the cycle when it's coming is they meet in the off season and they say, okay, let's look at all the bills that we want to consider and let's pre-vote on them as a task force and say, we endorse this legislation. Mm-hmm. Well, there is a task force in a specific state where 100% of the bills that pass out of that task force pass into law. They have a perfect record. They've never missed. Our bill, our strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation just passed through that committee. So it just passed through that task force. So what we are saying is because this legislative body, this task force made up of lawmakers is never wrong. They're 100%. Every time they win, and they just pushed our legislation through. That's why we're labeling this piece of legislation as a near 100% chance of passing into law.
Can we rewind and can you tell the story of a little bit of your background and how Satoshi Action came to be in the first place?
Absolutely. So in June of 2022, we were not in a good place. So I started to talk a lot about Bitcoin in the early 2020s. I had been a Bitcoiner since 2017, but mostly I stayed offline and, at least publicly. I didn't talk about it a lot publicly. I just learned. I got a lot of Bitcoin books behind me. I read a lot of Bitcoin books. I listened to a lot of Bitcoin podcasts, and I read as much material as I could and listened to as many talks as I could from some of the greats, including Andreas Antonopoulos. In fact, I think I have his book right here, Mastering Bitcoin. It's falling apart. I read it so much. Even though I'm not a technical person, it's a very technical book. I'd encourage people to read it a few times. So I just learned. I learned as much as I possibly could for several years. But in early 2020, 2021, Bitcoin starts taking off again. And I said, you know what? I'm compelled. I got to speak about Bitcoin. So I start talking about Bitcoin. And as I'm in the community, we're all starting to have this conversation publicly that we're worried that the government is going to come take our Bitcoin, or we're worried that the government might ban Bitcoin. We all saw how fast they moved during the shutdowns, and everyone was in their homes during 2020, 2021 thinking, wow, what if they did this to Bitcoin? Well, that's a scary time. We all said, okay, well, this is clearly going to happen, and we got to move to El Salvador, and we got to start protecting and going underground. I just didn't like the way that the conversation was going. I thought it was a very negative and pessimistic view of the future. And I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist. So it wasn't working for me. And I said, you know what? I know enough about the political system. I grew up in a family where politics was a kitchen table issue. We talked about it nonstop. I grew up in a conservative family, one that was listening to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity all the time, but I've also lived in Portland, Oregon for the last 15 years. So I have this very wide range of understanding also not only politics, but both sides of the conversation and understanding what matters and what's meaningful to both sides. Well, all of a sudden, with all my experience and knowledge of the political space, I'm seeing us ignore it. And it's really not a good idea to ignore politics. You can ignore politics, you can not like politics, and you can say that you're not interested in it. But politics is definitely interested in you. The government is absolutely interested in what you're doing. And if you don't prepare for moments when they all of a sudden start taking a close look at what you're doing as an industry, you're not going to be in a good place. You're going to have bad things happen. And in fact, that did happen. The infrastructure bill in 2021 that came out, it was a slap in the face. And everyone woke up and they realized, they said, wow, Dennis has been right. We do need to be politically active because very bad things can happen if we don't. So what did we do? We launched Satoshi Action. Not only are we're not going to just talk about it. We're not just going to get on Twitter and shout into the void. We are going to get into the trenches. We are going to educate lawmakers and regulators on the benefits of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And we are going to show them that this technology can do incredible things, not only for individuals, but for the entire country. We've done that. We've been so successful. I outlined some of our successes earlier. But ultimately, the reason we got into this game, my team, is because we saw the direction we were headed in. And we said, we don't want to go down that path. We want to go towards a bright future where all Americans benefit from Bitcoin, and we are a leader on Bitcoin. And we have been able, in my opinion, we have been a big part of changing the dialogue and the narrative around Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. The number of lawmakers we've spoken to is incredible. I don't even think anybody has come close to this. In fact, we've had a letter sent by our advocates to every single lawmaker in this entire country. There's about 7,900 of them, state lawmakers, federal lawmakers, 7,900 of them. They've all gotten letters. Every single one of them. We track it. We know. We've got almost 250,000 letters that have been sent to lawmakers in this country. We also did things like going to Washington, D.C. and handing out Bitcoin books, some of the books that are behind me right now. And we hand-delivered them. We hand-delivered Bitcoin books to every single member of Congress. Things like this, letters that are coming in from constituents, hand-delivered books from constituents, bills being passed, academic research. These are the things that turn the tide of history. We feel that we've done that. We've played a major role in that, and we're going to continue now. The ball was being pushed up the hill. We were pushing the ball up the hill to be able to get Bitcoin progress here in the US, but the ball is rolling down the hill now. Ever since the election, the ball is rolling down the hill, and now we're in the best position of any organization in this space to chase after that ball and get as many wins as we possibly can for Bitcoin.
Can you touch on Satoshi Educate? What is it, and how can people that are interested help to support Satoshi Educate and the Satoshi Action Fund?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, we do, for those that are listening, we're a nonprofit. We sort of view ourselves as ambassadors or representatives of Bitcoin. So we go out and we fight for Bitcoin, but we need to be supported. We need financial support. Both Satoshi Action Fund and Satoshi Action Education are nonprofits. One is a 501c4, and Satoshi Action Education, that is the 501c3. Satoshi Action Education is more of a global nonprofit. We focus on international relations through that nonprofit. It's all education, though. No laws being passed, no political work to an extent. And we also develop our research through Satoshi Action Education. So we have an academic, Dr. Murray Rudd. He does incredible stuff. The guy worked at the UN. He worked for the Canadian government. He is an environmental economist, PhD. He's got a ton of experience getting academic works through the peer-reviewed process. And he's really why we've been so successful. We have been able to get more peer-reviewed research done than anyone else in the Bitcoin space. And it's all because of our team. We have the best team members. Same on Satoshi Action Fund. We have Eric Peterson. He's our policy director. He does incredible stuff. He is a wizard when it comes to policy. He can see around the corners. We put a great team together, and that's why we're so successful. But Satoshi Action Education really is focused on education. It's focused on research, and it's focused on driving the international conversation around Bitcoin as well.
What can individuals do in their individual states right now to spring into action, be involved, and help? Even though the ball's rolling downhill now, I'm sure people are wondering, is there anything that I can do? Or nothing's a guarantee. So how can people be proactive at this point and help?
Excellent question. If people want to help, they can participate in all of the letter writing campaigns that we do. We make it so simple. We spend a lot of money, in fact, to make it simple. We have one-click tools. We have advocacy tools that we make available to the public. We make them all available. And we say, even though it costs us a lot of money, we say, here you go. We'll do all the work for you. All you need to do is click a button, and you can send a letter to your members of Congress and your state representatives advocating for Bitcoin. We do those all the time. There will be more coming up. We did one recently for the state lawmakers on strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation, and it was an incredible campaign. We had over 190,000 letters sent, almost 200,000 letters sent that way. And we'll do those again in the future. We've also done the book drives before. But if we're not doing anything and you don't want to wait for Satoshi Action to provide opportunities to volunteer, write your lawmaker, write a letter, tell them why you support Bitcoin. It's very easy to look up lawmakers. You just Google it. You say, well, if even you're using Google anymore, everyone's using AI these days. If you Google or you look up your lawmaker, their email is right there. And you can send them a letter and you can say why you support Bitcoin. These letters make a big difference. Lawmakers, especially at the state level, they're very beholden to the people that they represent. There's a lot better connection between the constituents and the lawmakers at the state level. They can really make a big difference for their people, different than DC, where it's hard to make a difference at all. It takes a lot of almost luck and a lot of work to get things done in Washington, D.C. But at the state level, a lot of room for success. So we encourage people, write your lawmakers, ask for meetings with your lawmakers, sit down with them and talk to them about why you support Bitcoin. If you can't get them very far, not everyone is a lawmaker, educator, pro. That's what we do at Satoshi Action. But you get them to a good place and you say, you know what? This is as far as I can take you. Why don't you talk to Satoshi Action? Why don't you talk to their team? They are the experts. They're the pros at talking about the need for Bitcoin at the state level, but also we're the pros at helping them to provide actual real policy solutions that get real progress done in their state for Bitcoin. Because oftentimes lawmakers will say, well, now that I'm educated on Bitcoin, what am I supposed to do next? And that's where we can step in and provide model solutions for them.
Great. What else? I'm sure there's several points of what else you think is really important for us to cover today as far as just the immediate path ahead.
The immediate path ahead is clear. We need to push and fight as hard as we can to be able to get Bitcoin moving forward. And we have this opportunity, and it won't be sunshine and roses forever. We're not going to have rainbows all the time, flying in the sky, so happy we've won. Politics can change really fast. So you need to take advantage of this momentum. You need to take advantage of this opportunity. People's ears, they're open. There are offices that I've been able to sit down with for 2 hours who never listened to me before, who are really interested in Bitcoin all of a sudden because they see what's happening now. It takes some time for some people to wake up. That's fine. They're very busy. A lot of these lawmakers, they're very, very busy. They have to worry about the border crisis. They have to worry about healthcare. They have to worry about the homeless crisis, the housing shortage, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza. And that's just getting started. They're very busy. They have a lot on their minds. So I understand why they may not be so focused on Bitcoin quite yet, but they are now. They have become much more interested to learn about Bitcoin. So take every opportunity you can right now because the doors are open. The ears are listening. People's eyes are opening. Do everything you can to get in front of your lawmakers, encourage them to reach out to us, and help them to see the value of Bitcoin as a technology because there is no better time than now to get it done.
Where can people reach out to you? What's the best place online? What's the best place or places for Satoshi Action? And just any closing thoughts that you might have.
Tim, great. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you letting me speak to your audience about the important work that we're doing at Satoshi Action to advance Bitcoin, to advocate for Bitcoin. If people love the work that we're doing and they want to reach out to us, they can reach out a number of different ways, but they can go to satoshiaction.io. They can sign up for our newsletter. That way we are able to communicate with them directly. Also, I'm very heavy on X, our Twitter Spaces, and Twitter in general. So if you want to follow along with our work there, you can follow me, Dennis Porter. If you search Dennis Porter, I happen to be the most popular Dennis Porter. So happy to be the #1 Dennis Porter on social media. But if you need to find my handle, it's at Dennis_Porter_. I wish I could get rid of the underscores, make my life a lot easier. So if there's any Dennis Porters out there with that handle that want to give it up, please reach out. Additionally, you can follow Satoshi Act Fund, even though the word is Satoshi Action Fund. Somebody had that already. You can sign up there to follow us and follow along with our work. And also, if you really do support the work that we're doing, you do care about advancing Bitcoin here in the United States, we are hoping to raise enough money to be able to fight for and win some of these policies. We want to get strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation passed across the country and also internationally as well. We have a lot of work going on internationally to be able to help other countries because we know that Bitcoin is a global movement. We care about the US. We're here in the US. That's where we can be the most effective. But we also want to give tools to folks internationally to make sure that they don't fall behind the progress that the US is going to make over the next 5 years. So if you care about that work, we would love to have a conversation about you supporting our work financially. Reach out to us anytime. Also, they can reach out via email, help@satoshiaction.io.
Dennis, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everything that you and Satoshi Action is doing. And really appreciate the time and hope to be able to do this again as it's fast moving and lots of updates here over the next coming weeks and months.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Tim.
Thank you.